Welcome to the Board Game Design Lab Tutorial Series, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. I will be your host, Chris Perea. In this series, we'll give you, the designers, the tools and information you need to get your ideas from concept into digital prototype and more. This is part 2 of the card design series, where we're actually going to finish the design of the cards, get them all exported, import them into the Tabletop Simulator deck editor program, and get them imported in Tabletop Simulator, update your mod with your new deck, and make sure everything works great. So what we're going to do is we're going to start exporting these cards and get them imported into Tabletop Simulator. So, to start this process, we need to export each card individually. It needs to be its own separate image file, so we can import it into the deck maker for Tabletop Simulator, and then we can import the deck into Tabletop Simulator. So, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight each card. So we're going to highlight this card. This is the Armor Level 1 card. We're going to go over to our extract or export PNG image. Make sure selection is selected, and we're going to go export as. And we need to export it into somewhere where we can find it. So go ahead and save it somewhere. And now I'm going to name this one exactly what it is. So this is Armor Level 1. Now make sure that you hit the green export button. Otherwise it doesn't export the image. You have to hit the export button. This export as is just telling it where to save and what you want it named at. So go ahead and hit the export button. Now that exported that card. So we're going to do that with the next one. Export as. Go here. This is going to be Armor Level 2. And export. Now, you got to do this with every card. It is a little tedious. But once you get every card exported just like this and named, we'll be right back. I'm going to export the rest of these, get them named, and then we'll jump over into the deck editor so we can get this imported into Tabletop Simulator. Alrighty, now that we have them all exported, I had to fix a name on the last row here. So now that we have them all exported into individual files, this is the key. They all got to be their own separate image, preferably names so you can keep them organized. Now you can always rewrite these, so you don't have to type in all the names all over again. You can just click on the one that you're going to replace and export it again. So now what we need to do is we need to open up the Tabletop Simulator deck editor. So to find that, we actually got to navigate over to the Tabletop Simulator install directory. It's actually inside the install directory of Tabletop. So to find that easily, I'm going to go to Steam and I'm going to go down to Tabletop Simulator. Now I'm going to right click on the name Tabletop Simulator and I'm going to go down to Properties, and there's a bunch of tabs here. I'm going to go to Local Files and Browse Local Files. Now this will bring you the install directory of Tabletop Simulator. So what you need to go to is Modding, Deck Builder, and then Tabletop Simulator Deckbuilder.exe. Now you can right click on this and pin it to your start menu so you can get it easier than going through this whole process, but that's how you get to it initially. So I'm going to go ahead and open the deck editor. And then I'm going to minimize some of this other stuff. Okay, so now we got the deck editor and we got our cards over here. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new deck, and it'll ask us for the width and height. So if you're making a standard size deck, it's actually going to be 9 and 6, and that'll give you 52 cards with a few blanks that you can have in there. If we're making a deck, like right now I only have 9 cards, so I'm only going to do 3 by 3. Now, it's very important you get the width and height right for the amount of cards and don't have a bunch of extra blank space, because the way that it exports the image to be used in Tabletop Simulator can cause graphical distortions when you import it into Tabletop Simulator. So I'm going to go 3 and 3 because I only have 9 cards. So when you hit OK, it'll bring you to this screen and you don't see anything. Just take one of your cards and drag it in, and it'll bring up the box and show you everything. Now I'm going to drag all of my cards in. Okay. Now that they're all in here and organized, see, I like to keep mine fairly organized. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, so I can keep track. There's one thing we actually got to fix. Now, in Tabletop Simulator, the very last card of the deck editor is actually going to be what the back of the card looks like. I believe it's when it's holding in your hand, or it's when it's on the deck of the table. Either way, it's the back of the card. You need to upload it twice. I believe this is the one that counts as what's in your hand, and then you tell it what it is when it's on the table, the back of the card is. So we actually need to make this deck larger. Now, I did this on purpose to show you how to change the size of the deck in case, you're uploading cards, you're like, man, I actually need 5 more of these or something. So I'm going to change deck size, and I'm going to just increase the width by 1. Okay. So now I just tried to drag in another card and it refreshed this. So now what I'm going to do is, for my purposes, I don't actually need a back of the card, but I'm going to put one on there just to, this is in a prototype phase. I don't know what this deck's going to be called. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to put one on there just to make it look better when we're in Tabletop Simulator, a little less confusing, especially if you play test with somebody. So I'm going to jump back into Inkscape here, and I'm going to click on the background of one of these cards. I'm going to hold down Control-D, duplicate it, hold Control, and just slide it over to the right. And then I'm going to grab this text here. I'm just going to triple click on it, and it'll actually select the text even though it's in a group. And I'm going to Control-D, and then move it over. And now you see how the text is actually behind the box. What we need to do is hit the page up button a few times and it'll bring it. Oops, why is that not bringing it? There we go. Okay, click on the box and hit the page down button, or the page up button on that. Okay, I'm going to ungroup these so these are actually separate. See, this gun level 3 and the 6 and this was all grouped together. So I clicked on that, ungrouped it. So now it's its own separate item. And now I'm going to just name this, I don't know, draw deck. And I'm going to export this just as you do a regular card. So I'm going to go back to my selection, select the deck, export as. I'm just going to call this draw background. Save, export. Now we're going to go back into our deck editor, and we're going to go back, open back up our cards here. And I'm going to put this one right here in this last spot. So now our deck is 4 by 3. We need to remember that. So we have our last card. That's the back of our deck. We have all of our cards inside the deck. You can organize them however you want. You can have fairly large decks. We're going to go to File, Export. It'll ask you current deck size, max deck size. I don't change any of this. I just go upload to Imgur, which ain't actually going to upload it to Imgur. It's just going to save the file that we need. So export, and we're going to go into the where we're saving all the other cards. And I usually name this like full set draw cards or something, so I know this is the full set of cards. Not that you can't tell because it's a really big image and has all your cards. I just like to name stuff because in Tabletop Simulator, when you're grabbing stuff, you can't actually see the images. So you got to name stuff very well, because in Tabletop Simulator, when you select something and import it, all you see is the name of this thing. You don't see the previews or anything like that. So go ahead and save that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this file location. I don't know if yours is complicated, more complicated, or simpler than mine. Either way, I'm going to highlight my file location that I'm in, and I'm going to copy it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into Tabletop Simulator, and we're going to get this deck imported for everybody. Alright, we're back in Tabletop Simulator now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a single player. Now I'm just going to add this into the race game for now. I'm not going to make another new mod for this, but you guys can add it into whatever mod you're currently working on. So I'm just going to continue on with the tabletop game we've been designing through the series so far. So the simple little race game. So what I'm going to do is we need to import a custom deck of cards. So we're going to go to Object, Components, and we're going to go to Custom, Deck. Now, this face picture is what we need to use for the full set of cards. So that's why I always call mine, this is a convention I got into, full set, so I know it's all together, it's all ready to go. So full set, go to local for now when you click upload. Now the back of the card is the same thing. It needs to be the background, the draw background card. So we have the background card of the deck, the physical deck, on the table. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my background card. Oops. Hit open. I'm going to do local for now, make sure it's right. Now our width and height was 4 by 3. And now the number of cards that we have is the total number of cards that you have in the deck, no matter how many blank spaces you have. So I only have 9 cards. Now we're going to go ahead and hit import. And it'll import our deck of cards in the middle of the table. Now we can click and hold, drag, and move it off. We can shuffle. And then we can also draw. And so now that's our deck of cards. To me, the default imported deck of cards always looks a little bit small. So I'm going to just highlight this and hit the plus button on my keyboard. Or you can right click on it and go to scale and go up just a few. Just to make it fit with the game here. So now that we have our deck of cards imported into Tabletop Simulator, we're going to go ahead and upload this to the workshop again. Now before we upload it, we got to, now that our deck's set up right and we like the way it looks, we got to upload all of our images to the cloud. So the cloud has it, and then people can pull it off the cloud and play your game. So we're going to go to Cloud Manager first, and we're just going to hit this arrow button here that says Upload All Local Files. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Upload, Upload, wait a few seconds, and it'll reload the game, and then re-download all the assets, just like that. Now, we're going to go to Workshop Upload, and instead of Upload to Workshop, we're going to update this Workshop mod again, because we're iterating, right? We added the deck, we got to change it, we got to iterate on it. So Workshop Upload. Now we need the Workshop ID. If you click this little tool set over here, it'll bring up all the ones that you have. So this is going to be the Race Game Tutorial version 1 that I'm working on. And then I'm not going to change anything else, any of this optional stuff. I'm just going to make sure I got the right game selected, and then I'm going to hit Update. It'll begin the update, and then it'll say Update Workshop Mod Successful. So now, I just like to test it just for sanity's sake. So I'm going to go back to the main menu and go yes. And then I'm going to create single player. I'm going to choose the game we're working on. Go to load. And look at that. Deck of cards is here when we reload it. It's not stuck on the one that we're designing on. So that was a quick and simple tutorial on how to take your simple prototype cards that you design in Inkscape, export them, import them into the deck editor, and then import them into Tabletop Simulator. We'll go more in depth in all of this later on in the series. I know this was pretty quick, and you may or may not run into certain issues. Feel free to leave a comment below. I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. And we will be getting more in depth into the uploading and exactly some of the cool tricks and everything we can do later on in the series. Small side note after the video. Make sure to save your Tabletop Simulator deck editor file so you don't have to go in and remake it every time. Simple as File, Save Deck As, and I'm going to save it exactly where all the rest of the cards are. And then just name it Full Set Edit File or something similar to that. And just make sure you save that so you don't forget and have to reset it back up. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notified of new uploads, and listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts at. Get in touch with the community over at our Facebook page, or talk with other designers in our Discord channel. All the links at BoardGameDesignLab.com or in the description below.